Catherine Robertson is the president and founder of Eaglecom Marketing. Eaglecom specializes in designing marketing strategies for Christian organizations and nonprofits. She's taken her vast experience in advertising and media and applied it to charitable organizations so that they can maximize every donated dollar. She joins us today to talk about why this is so important to her. And thank you for joining us, Catherine.
It is indeed my pleasure to be here.
So you have a bit of a story to tell about how do you end up, obviously you come from the media world, and tell us about that transition from working for other people to being in business for yourself.
Well, I've actually had a 44-year career, can you believe it, in advertising agency business.
So you started when you were 9?
Yeah, something like that. So I've always been that middleman, that group that's in between clients and the media and trying to get messages out. So 22 years ago, I married my love of ministry, media, and marketing and created Eaglecom. And the intention, I think, quite honestly, Randy, was that I would employ myself and work out of my living room and take care of my 2 children. And that would be my job. But in fact, it has grown from there. We're still a small company, but we're 12 people today and have about 25 amazing clients that do great things all over the world. And we come alongside them now in many, many ways with to help them reach people and convey messages that literally change people's lives.
So you were like a corporate marketing guru and media buyer and et cetera, serving the corporate world. What's it like now serving the world of ministry and nonprofits?
Well, I think it's fabulous. They have the same challenges, and maybe even more so. Every one of our clients has to get the peace of mind that they're spending their donation dollar in the very best way. And that's where we come in, obviously. What I'm selling, Randy, is peace of mind. Our clients need to know that they have stretched those dollars, they've spent them wisely, and that they're reaching the right people in the most effective way.
Now, your little Eaglecom that was going to be like a little solopreneur business at home, something for you to do, to cut back on all the boredom of raising children, that became this really successful, growing company. But there's kind of a pause in the success story.
For 20 years, it was we added business, we added clients, we added staff, and we were in that 10, 12 people range. 2 years ago, I felt very, very called, drawn, inspired, and encouraged to take some of the services that we'd been employing out of house, if you will, like creative teams or marketing and branding teams, and bring them in-house. It was a natural. I wasn't loading up on auto parts or something that didn't have anything to do with our business. We had a very natural extension. This was going to be a way to grow in another form. And so we did that, and we hired talented people, and we got all the hardware and the software and the new office and all the things you need. Nothing was crazy, but you just start to do that. And then you walk down a road, and I walked down that road for 2 years. Everyone was busy, we were excited, with lost leader projects, mind you, where you're giving away a lot because you're building this side of your business. So while we had been media planners and buyers, we now added that full service, a creative team. I love being around creative people. They're awesome. And 2 years later, I realized we would be out of business in 6 months if I carried on with that. And I'll tell you, Randy, this only happened 9 months ago. And at that time, I went into a valley. I sort of went into a very lonely place. I don't mean I was depressed or I didn't function, but I went to a lonely place of, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. How do I get out of this valley? What do I do? And it was really difficult. And the toughest part was I felt like a failure. I felt like a failure. I thought, how could I be in business this long and do something that seemed so natural and fail at it? And failure was just that I financially could not possibly support this path we were on. It was simple math. The costs outweighed the income, and I now carry debt that I might not pay off in my lifetime. But all of a sudden you're going, how did I get here?
Wow.
And so, but then I realized, with the help of my brother and a few others who counseled me at the time, that trying something as an entrepreneur is never a failure. Lots of great ideas don't pan out. But had I not responded, that would have been failure. And so I had to cross that really difficult bridge and decide what it was going to take to change it. And that ultimately meant letting all of those services go and consequently letting people go.
Tough.
And July 6th was a really, really tough day. But you know, Randy, I've learned more through that experience than maybe the rest of my career, because I realized that what matters to me is how I make people feel in business. And I had a job to do on July 6th to tell 10 people that I was taking away their job.
Right.
But what mattered was how I made them feel in that process. I was rocking their world that day.
Wow.
But it has been a huge learning curve for me. And we're coming back and we're strong. And we use some of those same people on a kind of a consulting
Contract
freelance
basis,
contract basis. That's the way to say it. And that's great. And I'm delighted to do that. But I have talked to probably 24 entrepreneurs in that period of time, and everyone has their story.
So you're in a turnaround mode right now.
It was an idea that did not pan out. I didn't have long enough. It would have worked eventually. But as a mentor friend said to me, when I said to him, you know, I feel like if I had long enough, it would have worked. He said, absolutely it would have, but you didn't have long enough.
Right.
And so that was part of it. And
well, in Silicon Valley, they call it pivoting.
I absolutely.
And all these big companies, and we've seen huge companies. Can you imagine how some of these CEOs of some of these huge, iconic, established companies? Remember a company in Canada called Woodward's?
Of
and there's a long chain of them
Yeah.
since that suddenly they're out of
Yeah.
business. Well,
Yeah.
I can't wait. You're going to be an inspiration to other people watching this show right now who are thinking, yikes, my business is in trouble and maybe I'm a failure. And instead, you just need to pivot. Ask Catherine Robertson. Just a real delight to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Catherine. Every year, approximately $35 billion of what's known as co-op advertising goes unused and unspent. Many retailers do not have the time, expertise, or know-how to access these funds. Some, in fact, don't even know they exist. Experiencing this herself, Amber Simpson set up a company called CoVault, which aims to simplify and standardize the process through an online platform so that small business can thrive. This is an interesting problem, Amber, but what is co-op advertising?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Good question. So co-op advertising is really the simple idea of two parties sharing in advertising. So a simple example would be if you're to look in your local newspaper and see a car ad, good chances are that ad is shared by the brand, say Nissan, and the local Nissan dealership.
So when I see an ad for Nissan on national television,
Yeah.
and it's about Nissan,
Yeah.
that's obviously just paid for by Nissan. What you're saying is that Nissan wants its local dealers to also do their own advertising?
Yes, the brands really encourage local advertising because that allows them to have a better market share in the local market and also gives them more brand awareness in the local market.
But they can choose whether they want to go in the newspaper or on the radio or whatever. Now, what you're saying is that the national brand will either pay part or all of the cost of that advertising?
Yes, yeah. So brands will reimburse a retailer for a brand compliant ad, usually 50% at least in the advertisement spend. So it's very helpful for retailers to have access to these funds.
So CoVault is the company that you dreamed up and created. What about you? Tell us your personal story. Are you an entrepreneur from the start?
Yeah, I guess I have been. I've had an interesting past. It started with counseling, owned a very large childcare center, moved into real estate, grew a really strong, active real estate company, and now have moved into technology.
So you have come up with a way to make it simpler for, I guess, the retailer to take advantage of 35 billion of unspent dollars?
Yeah.
That sounds bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It's a problem we experienced firsthand with our own family dealership, and experienced how difficult it was to get our ads co-op approved and launch the ads and get the reimbursement. So the time cycle, it's sometimes up to a month to go through this process. As we looked into this, we realized that co-op marketing is a massive problem. And in the US alone, there's $70 billion available for co-op advertising. And like you mentioned, 35 billion is left unused. It's available to retailers. They're just not able to access it.
Tell me what the process of how you decided to jump in and do that.
It was just through the idea that that something could be possible to take, a system that's using fax machines and put it onto an online platform. It was just very exciting. And
Hold
thought,
on a
let's
minute.
give this a
We're
try.
in 2019.
Yeah.
You said the system was using
Yeah.
fax machines?
It still is.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how, there's many businesses that are still going through this approval process, and it's very cumbersome, and their paperwork is in some ways not to modern standards, and fax machines are definitely still being used. Yeah, I mean, mostly now it's emails,
but how does a big company that's got they've got all these retailers, independent, I guess mostly franchisees, right?
Yeah.
That they want them to do their own local advertising. How can it be that they would say, I can understand the government maybe, with medical records or something, but even they're going digital.
Yeah.
How could it be that big companies would still be so far behind?
We're really at the right time because they're understanding this needs to change. 80% of co-op advertising has been going to traditional media such as print. And now they're realizing that we need to become modern and go with the digital era. And so a lot of brands are requiring that the retailers spend at least 50%, sometimes even 100% of their co-op funds on digital advertising. And the challenge is the retailers are just not sure how to go about doing a proper digital campaign, getting it approved, and how to send in the invoice and the proof that the campaign ran. Yeah.
So does your system help the retailer navigate through the new world of advertising?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've created a really simple, effective way for retailers to be able to launch digital ads. So we've got two options. A retailer can create their own ad, or they can use one of our templates, our ready-made templates.
So the way it works is I own some kind of retail franchise.
Yeah.
And I know that because of my franchise agreement that there's co-op dollars available to me if I run an ad in the local newspaper.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, but I think I should be doing Facebook advertising instead.
Yeah.
So I would have to get that pre-approved before I spend the money in order to get recouped.
So it's that approval process that is really what we've streamlined. So in order to get your reimbursement from the brand for your advertisement, you first have to go through the approval process. And so on our online platform, it's making it very easy. And the brand is getting a notification instantly. They're able, just even from a mobile device, they're able to see the ad that has just been sent for approval. And then they're able to approve it, or they can send suggestions as to how they want it changed. Once the retailer gets this approval, then from our platform, they can launch it directly to the media channel of their choice. And then we also are able to send analytics to the brand and retailer on how well the ad performed. And we're able to help out with invoicing and reimbursement. So it's beginning to end a solution to help with co-op advertising.
Well, it's a logical progression. You're going to be a counselor, and it said you're CEO of a technology company called CoVault.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing how it all explodes across the world.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
Founder and CEO of Entrepreneur by Design, Wendy Fedoruk has built a business helping her fellow entrepreneurs succeed. Between 70% and some studies say over 90% of small businesses fail. But Wendy believes this failure rate could be greatly reduced because solopreneurs make the same mistakes. Wendy joins us on Biz 101 today to talk with us about how she helps small businesses of all types and the 4 mistakes most solopreneurs make. Hey, Wendy, what's a solopreneur?
A solopreneur is basically an entrepreneur that mostly works alone. And I also like to call solopreneurs are very often first-generation entrepreneurs. And that is entrepreneurs who are the first time of their lines of family to be doing all this crazy entrepreneur stuff that we like to do. So they're first-timers.
So for you, what's your own story about how you got to being I guess you're a solopreneur yourself.
I am, that's correct. So my story started with real estate investing, actually. I invested in the United States, mostly Phoenix, Arizona, during the crash that we've seen in the US. I am a Canadian, so it was not normal. I didn't know anybody else who was investing in the United States during the crash because most Canadians were too afraid to do so. But I jumped in because I seen cash flow, really good cash flow compared to what I could get in Calgary, and definitely based on depreciation and equity growth.
So isn't it interesting, Wendy, that the crash that affected so many people in North America, around the world, and was so horrible in a lot of ways, turned out to be an opportunity for you?
That is very true, and it's hard to believe, isn't it? And at the very beginning, it was hard because the homes were really trashed, because people were angry and they were hurt. But over time, once a lot of the Americans realized this is happening to everybody, it's not just me, then the homes weren't quite so damaged. So it was quite an experience emotionally, not even just the business side of it.
Entrepreneur by design.
Yes. So when, as you say, things shifted, the market shifted, house prices went up, the Canadian dollar went down, the opportunity basically went away. But what I realized from that experience was that I loved to consult. And to mention, I did have an e-commerce store for a short while in between there, but that didn't work for me because there was no people involved really. It was me and this online store, right? So I learned a lot about digital marketing and online marketing during that experience, but I quickly sold it and then decided, now what's next? And then it was, I have a lot of business experience here. I have experience as an entrepreneur, as a consultant. Where should I go with this? And business consulting just came out of the blue one day, and I was like, this is where I'm gonna go. I got certified with the Canadian Coaches Federation, and I worked with a team of business coaches just to get my business coaching skills up to par. And then I was able to get a contract. So I'm an independent contracted consultant, and I got a contract with a large Canadian bank who I'm still with today, and I consult their small business clients for sales and marketing.
So you are dealing with mostly first-time entrepreneurs.
Correct.
And you can identify with them because that was you.
Exactly. They're startups or small businesses that are struggling. So a few of them have been in business for a few years, but they've realized they have forgot to learn a few things before they jumped into their business.
So your company specializes in online sales funnels.
So it's a type of lead generation. So all businesses need lead generation. There are multiple different types of ways you can bring in leads. The online sales funnels are basically, they're kind of new to the market in that everybody needs them now. They've been there for a long time, but it was mostly just online e-commerce that needed them, or your gurus that you see selling products online. But now even small businesses and retail stores need some funnels, some of the basic funnels. And what a funnel is, I'm just going to give you, because there's multiple funnels, but one example is an email opt-in funnel. So that is where a person would create something for free, something valuable, some of your knowledge. You can make it into an ebook or just into a guide, and then that you offer that for free online in exchange for an email address.
So you're a online primarily sales and marketing expert?
Well, I'm both offline and online. So I can't say I'm an online expert because that is a very, very technical area with like when you're doing Facebook ads, you got to know Facebook inside and out. If you're doing AdWord, like Google AdWord ads, you got to know that inside and out. And you also have to be able to hook together all the technology. So, you know, you have to hook it up to the ad and then hook it to your email or hook it to your website. So there's a lot of tech in that. I just know the basics of all the different types of marketing that small businesses can do. And then we go through it all and figure out what's best for their business.
And so you're really teaching them how to fish, so to speak, instead of giving them fish.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do. I teach them. I don't do it for them. I teach them how to do it.
So Wendy, apparently you're going to tell me the 4 things that businesses almost always get wrong.
Okay, so number 1, as we touched on a little bit, is just not getting the proper education. So jumping into a business too quick, not learning all of the 5 components of a small business, not learning exactly how to do sales and marketing, or learning enough about it so that they know how they can hire out and not waste their money.
Right.
The other one is wearing all the hats in the business. So many small business owners will try to do it all to save money and whatnot in the beginning, and they just can't do it, and they get overwhelmed, and they end up just saying, I've had enough. I would say the third one is getting stuck in your old ways. So if you've been in business for a while, just kind of being resistant to learning the new ways. And
things are changing.
They are,
I've
aren't
kind
they?
of noticed that. Ouch.
And they're changing so quickly, right? So you have to be on top of it all the time. And the fourth one would just be not testing and measuring. So if a company has got some systems in place, and often a lot of them won't even have systems in place, they won't have policies and procedures written up and things like that. So just not tracking and measuring and seeing that the efforts that they are making, if they're working or if they're not.
Wendy, entrepreneur by design. Entrepreneur my whole life. I learned a lot in this little segment.
Well,
Thank you
I'm
so much
glad
for
you
coming
did.
on Biz 101.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Yeah.